Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sports King.Pod. And now, I know, Dan knows, it's been a minute since we've been here, just doing a normal podcast. I don't know the exact date. I think it was sometime around November we recorded episode 10, and we're finally back, episode 11. We're one member short, but two of the three. I am your host, as always, Dominic, joined by one half of the Price brothers, Daniel Price. And, we're going to do what we do best, and that's talk sports. And why not start out with Super Bowl 55? We're a little less than a week away at this point. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the NFC champions, are going to play the Kansas City Chiefs, the AFC champions, as everyone knows by this point, in a game that's, I would say, surefire to be a classic. So I would say let's just dive right into it. Dan, give us everything you've got on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it right there. It's definitely going to be a classic. We have Tom Brady, of course, quarterback with the most Super Bowls in history, against Patrick Mahomes, who's like we all see is a generational talent. And by the end of his career, who knows if we'll be speaking of him in a higher echelon than Brady, which would be very hard to do. But at this point in his career, 3 years as a starter, he has an MVP and a Super Bowl MVP. It's quite insane, and he could have another Super Bowl as well. Um, Sorry, my Zoom freaked out for a second. But yeah, this game should be an interesting one. Obviously, in the conference championship games, the Chiefs won in a more convincing fact and a convincing manner. I don't know if that means anything because, a win is a win, but the Chiefs' weapons, man, Hill and Kelsey, I don't know what the Buccaneers are going to do to stop them. They did play earlier in the season, and Tyreek Hill broke the fantasy point record. He had like 200 yards, 2 touchdowns in the
In the
first
first
quarter.
quarter, yeah.
It is, I think he finished with like 270 and 3 touchdowns, which is insane. But this isn't like a surefire runaway thing for the Chiefs. The Bucks are still a good team. They have a very good defense, which would which was what won them the NFC Championship against, probable league MVP Aaron Rodgers, Shaq Barrett, and JPP. They just can generate pressure. Like they are a very good team, very well coached, and of course they have Tom Brady. This is going to be his 10th Super Bowl appearance, right, Tom? Or is
Yep.
it not 10th? That's, that is insane. That is, like LeBron, Jordan, he's in the GOAT or in the GOAT conversation. And I should be a good one. It should definitely be a good one.
Yeah, you mentioned that Tyreek Hill performance when they played. I believe it was week 7 around that point. I had the honor of going up against Tyreek Hill in fantasy that
Mm.
week. So, I'm over it at this point, but it is what it is. Here's where I stand on the game. I genuinely believe that the only team that could stop the Chiefs this season would be the Bills. And the regular season game didn't really show that, and then the postseason game showed it a little bit more, but it definitely didn't. It wasn't what I expected from the Bills. But at the same time, I am no longer a fool to doubt Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. So at one point, I'm like, okay, I'm contradicting myself by saying that the Buccaneers can beat the Chiefs. But at the same time, also contradicting myself by saying Tom Brady's going to lose the Super Bowl. So I sit here and I think to myself, what's going to happen in the Super Bowl? And then I remember it doesn't really matter. Sure, Brady gets his 7th Super Bowl. I don't know if anyone's ever going to catch up to that. Maybe Mahomes does in his career. Who knows? But I also look at it. Mahomes wins the Super Bowl. It's sort of like a passing the torch type of moment. I'm not saying, for all we know, the Buccaneers could be right back in the spot next year. Brady's got a 2-year deal with them. He's gonna. It's almost certain that he's gonna play next season, unless something really weird happens. He's gonna play next season, and I can almost guarantee you, it looks like Drew Brees is gonna retire. So I'd say they might run away with the South, depending on what the Saints do with their quarterback situation, which we'll probably talk about in a minute,
And their cap,
and their
very
cap.
bad cap
Yep.
situation.
So there's a very, very good chance we see the Buccaneers right back here next year at Super Bowl 56. But then again, at the same point, there's a very good chance we see the Chiefs back here at Super Bowl 56. So I don't necessarily want to make a prediction, but I think it's just great to see the position we're in. We got the Chiefs; they're the young team, they're the fun team. I think they're the team everyone likes. There's not really a way you can hate against Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelsey, And I mean, I can't hate Andy Reid just because of the connection I have with him. All his years coaching the Eagles, I've supported him with the Chiefs all the years. And I imagine a lot of other Eagles fans out there have, including Dan. So I would say that it's just going to be a fun experience. I'll put it that way. I mean, every Super Bowl is usually fun. Besides Super Bowl 53, we don't talk about that game. It's just the Buccaneers. I really like them, but I doubted them the whole year. I was like, listen, the way I looked at them was the same way I looked at the Browns when they traded for Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, and everyone's like, they're going to the Super Bowl, no doubt about it this year. And I was like, I don't buy it. I think they go like 8-8 at best, 9-7, and they did that year. I think they went maybe 7-9, 8-8 that first year they had them. And I said the same thing about the Buccaneers this year. I was like, there's no way they go better than 9-7, just not going to happen. And I'm eating my words down Tom Brady again. So I'm not going to say Brady loses. I'm not going to say the Chiefs lose. I think we all win. I think it's going to be a fun Super Bowl to watch. It's going to be a fun game. I expect a high-scoring affair. It's not going to be a defensive shootout. I could see Mahomes maybe throwing for 7 touchdowns possibly, depending on how the run game does. And it could very well look like Super Bowl 52 again, with the numbers Brady put up in that game against the Eagles. And for all we know, we saw the numbers Nick Foles put up in that game, so Patrick Mahomes could very well do the same thing. So I've said it plenty of times. I'm not going to make a prediction. Dan, you're welcome to make a prediction if you'd like to, but I'm not going to be bold enough to make one.
Yes, I will. It is also interesting. I'm pretty sure the Chiefs are 3-point favorites, and even though I don't think there are any fans there, it is being played in Tampa
There's going to be
Bay,
fans there.
which
There's going to be,
others.
yes.
Do you know the number? I'm sure it's limited, very limited.
I don't think it's any more than 10,000.
Okay, all right. So that's not really anything. So let's limited fans. It is in Tampa Bay. This is the first home Super Bowl we're seeing in NFL history. That's crazy to think about to me that like Dallas never got it when they were winning Super Bowls, when the dinosaurs were alive and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, okay, my prediction, I think that the Chiefs are going to win by a field goal. That is, I just think.
I'm not bold enough to say that. I can't. I mean, like, if I had to, gun to my head, I would probably say Chiefs win, but I'm nowhere near bold enough to give a score prediction. Because like I said, I think this is just such an offensive game that it could really go either way. It's like I don't really think either defenses step up, and we know both defenses are pretty good. We've got Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu on one side of the ball with the
Chiefs are
Chiefs.
sneaky, underrated their
We've
defense.
got,
They
like you said,
playmakers.
David. You got Ndamukong Suh. You got Davis on the Buccaneers. I mean, they're both pretty decent defenses, but I feel like I said, Super Bowl 52, the Eagles, they were one of the top defenses that year going into that Super Bowl, and they ended up giving up 33 points to the Patriots. And the Patriots, they had a somewhat decent defense that year, and they still gave it 41 to the Eagles. So I think it's going to be very similar to that game. We're going to see a really good shootout, really good offensive game, and it's what the average football fan would like to see. I think like you watch a football game and you're not really interested in football, and you're just like, I just want to see a team score. Or it's like when you have no part of the game. It's like if the Eagles were in the game, obviously I would be like, I really hope we don't give up more than 20 points, because at that point, our defense is just gotta stick with them. And so I feel like just the offensive game, the scoring, I think both teams, they can run the ball pretty decently. You look at Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette for the Buccaneers, and you look at Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs, and they always do those, jet sweeps with Hardman and Tyreek Hill, so they run the ball too. It's just going to be high scoring. I'm going to say, think of this as a college game. Take the over. Don't even consider taking the under. I don't know if the over is going to be 75. I don't know if it's going to be 52. Take the over. Just
I think it was 54, if I remember.
Take it. Take the over. They're gonna be over that by halftime. And then halftime. How about the weekend, Dan?
Yeah, we had in NFL news you're referring to, you mean?
Oh, I was talking about the singer, like Blinding Lights. He's doing the
Right.
halftime show.
Sorry. Yeah,
But you know
that
what?
one.
That's a great segue. Let's just move right into it. Matthew Stafford, was quarterback of the Detroit Lions, has been shipped over to the Los Angeles Rams for, I believe it was Jared Goff, uh, the first round picks for the next 2 years, I believe, and a third round pick as well.
Yep.
So, right off the bat, Dan, who's your winner of the trade?
I believe, well, I think the immediate winner will be the Rams, but I genuinely think that this is a win-win for both teams because the way I look at it, the Rams are in win now mode. Like I understand that everyone was throwing the stat. Their last first round pick was in 2016 and it was Jared Goff. Like I get it, but the Rams are very good at hitting with their day two and day three picks, and they need to get. They have Aaron Donald in his prime. They have Jalen Ramsey in his prime, even though Ramsey's will be a bit longer because he's still pretty young. But they have a lot of guys in their prime, and I think that they made the right move because I think that they were a quarterback away, and they got a guy like Stafford who's supremely talented. And oddly enough, he's cheaper than Jared Goff. That's a huge thing too. They got out of Jared Goff's contract, which he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, which is weird to think, but he is. And then for the Lions, you have a new coach in there and Dan Campbell, and they could possibly turn it around for Goff. Goff has just he's been mediocre. I don't think he's ever been like horrifically bad. So he could turn it around. The season they went to the Super Bowl, he was a very good quarterback, I would say. Obviously, it was Todd Gurley in the defense that mostly gave them their success, but he was a good quarterback. And those two first round picks are huge for them. They're in the rebuild. And hey, third round picks are very valuable. I mean, every you could point to rosters. Terry McLaurin was a third round pick. There are a lot of good third round picks in the league. So I'm gonna say it was an even trade, but for now, obviously, I'm gonna say the Rams are winners.
I would agree with that. I think the only part is that if the Rams don't end up winning a Super Bowl within, I would say, Matthew Stafford's tenure there, which is probably going to be like the next 3 years, I think they lose the trade and Detroit ends up winning. I mean, you look at the bigger picture and Stafford's obviously a better quarterback than Goff right now, but Stafford's 32 and Jared Goff is what, 26, 27-ish.
Something like that.
He's
He's around
younger.
Carson Wentz's age.
Yeah, he's younger, and now they've got, like you just said, those two first round picks and then a third round pick, which could be a hit or miss. And like you said, Goff, he's had his moments. He's shown that he can be a pretty decent quarterback in this league. He's not surprised anyone. I don't think he's put up any MVP numbers yet in his career, but he's played in the Super Bowl. I mean, you did say it. Their defense really helped him, and Todd Gurley that year, but he was the quarterback. The quarterback's got to do a thing or two to help a team get to the Super Bowl. So he's got that on his resume. And I guess we'll just have to see where it goes with the Lions. We'll have to see what they do. We'll have to see how they help him, what their O line's going to look like with his future there, depending on how long he decides to stick around. What they do with their skill positions, their wide receivers. They've already got T.J. Hockenson at tight end. I think he's pretty decent. I think he's got a good career looking forward in the NFL.
Both
And
Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones are free agents, so
yeah,
I
so
would
we'll have to see what they do with them.
they could draft Smith or Chase as well, kind
Mm-hmm.
of where they're sitting. They could draft a quarterback too. That maybe they're like, okay, we had to we had to get Goff in the deal to get the extra first round pick. That's what I think because I feel like generally around the league it would probably take in a first, a third, and a quarterback. But because they had a quarterback with Jared Goff's cap hit, they threw in the extra first round pick. So they could stick with him. I think this year he'll be their starter going in, no doubt. But they could draft a quarterback. But, we still have drafts in April, so we still have a long while to go.
Yeah, look out for Dan's first round mock draft
Mm.
sometime within that period. But I agree, they could end up taking a quarterback. We could see them maybe trading back and taking possibly Trey Lance. Maybe if they stick around, what is their pick? 7 right now?
Mhm.
Possibly they take Zach Wilson. Maybe they trade back and take Mac Jones. So and you told me he had a pretty good Senior Bowl. His stock rose a
He
little
did.
bit, so we could see maybe he goes at 7. Who knows? But I think in the future, the bigger picture, the Lions will have been winners from this. But like I said, if the Rams do end up winning a Super Bowl within the next 3 years or so, I think that they'll win the trade and it'll be a win-win deal for both teams. And for the Rams, I mean, I could definitely see them winning a Super Bowl in the next 3 years. The defense is great. As you said, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, still pretty young, still got a good prime ahead of them. And it's not like their offense is garbage. They've got some pretty good young running backs. They've got a decent offensive line. They've got good wide receivers to work with in Cooper Kupp and, you know, uh,
Robert Woods,
Robert
Josh
Woods.
Reynolds, two
Yeah,
good
tight
tight ends, and
ends.
Higby and Everett.
Their offense is good. And now they've got a
They just
quarterback,
needed a quarterback. Hmm.
strong arm. He can really put it on the money for those guys. So I think the Rams definitely could. And we know how stacked the NFC West is. So that could be their biggest challenge. Just getting out of the NFC West. And it wasn't a big deal for them this year. They didn't win the division, but they still beat the Seahawks in the wild card round. So it's
Healthy
just
Niners could be interesting
it could
next
be a
year.
problem. And we know the Cardinals are going to get better too. So that division is going to be very interesting to look at next season. But another thing that I found interesting, and I'm not sure how entirely true this is, but I heard that the Lions before, or not the Lions, the Rams before they traded for Stafford, they were looking to get Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. I don't know how entirely true that is. I saw a report on it earlier, but apparently the Packers were not willing to trade him at all. They asked what their price was, and the Packers were just like, "Just give us your entire organization." That was pretty much, you know, they weren't having it. They weren't trading Rodgers, and
Hmm.
rightfully so. But I find that pretty interesting that the Rams, they were really looking for a new quarterback. It looks like.
Yeah, I didn't believe all that stuff that came out right after the Packers lost to the Buccaneers about Rodgers wanting out. I think it was in his uh, post-game interview. He said, let's see what the future holds. And I think people kind of, twisted that into a narrative of he wants out. He's going to go to LA because it's LA and that's where players go.
And he's
But
from there too, to be fair.
yeah, that also. But I don't think Rodgers he's not going to get traded. I don't think he's forcing a move out. But I do get the Rams, wanting out of Jared Goff because I think they see how good they had the best defense in the NFL last year. And I think that they saw, they performed similarly with Jared Goff and when John Wolford was in, who put that he was an NFL quarterback in his like LinkedIn profile.
Yeah,
But
and to be fair, before they traded him, I heard that there was going to be an open quarterback competition between him and Wolford at camp. So there was definitely some. I feel like there was something more going on with Goff. I feel like everyone knew what we were looking at, but there was something more that the Rams saw that we didn't. To where it
yeah,
was like Goff he's not the guy that we thought he was going to be. We got to move on.
yeah,
So
and that's why I think that they're winning from this move, at least at today's point in time, because in the NFL, if you stay the same, you're getting worse because other teams are improving through free agency, through the draft. So if you evaluate your team and you see an opportunity to upgrade at a position, regardless of the position, of course, this one was quarterback. I think I'm okay with the 2 first-round picks because they would I think if they even stuck with Goff, they'd be picking in the 20s, in the first round. So it's not like they're losing like a top 5 pick, at least in my opinion, considering how well they played this year.
yeah, it brings up another good point too. We know Deshaun Watson wants out, and we saw how much the Rams just gave up to get Matthew Stafford. And from what I hear, the Texans' asking price for Deshaun Watson are 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and 2 defensive starters.
Oh wow.
Is I that's a high price already. I feel like that price might go up considering they saw how much Stafford went for.
Yeah, I thought Deshaun in Watson's contract that there was like a no trade clause that can be waived only if a quarterback also goes in the other direction. So I thought that a quarterback had to be a part of the deal. I may be wrong, but that's why I was hearing that's why everyone was hearing the things like Miami trades their 2 picks and Tua, and with the other trades like Mitch or Jimmy Garoppolo goes in the other direction type thing. So I may be wrong, but it is gonna take a king's ransom to get Deshaun Watson out of Houston, and I feel bad for the guy. He's he's a great talent. I doubted him a bit at first. I think he had some accuracy problems. Obviously, he was a winner, but he had some accuracy problems, but he worked on it. Now he's a very accurate, very proficient quarterback, and he's a star in the league. And it's just unfortunate that his organization's failing him, similarly to how I believe the Lions failed Matthew Stafford. But he's gone now. I don't think Deshaun Watson will be gone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know if there's anything that is going to trade for Watson. I know he wants out, but I think the Texans are going to end up asking for way too much, and no team's going to want to pull the trigger on it, especially if it is the case where they do want 2 defensive starters. I don't know if there's a team that gives up 2 defensive starters. Granted, Deshaun Watson's a very good quarterback, but I don't know if I'm giving up 2 defensive starters on top of all the draft picks I'm already giving you to get him. I don't even know how many teams out there could pull that off in the league right now. I know the teams that are kind of in the mix talking about getting him. You look at the Jets, you look at the Dolphins, you look at the 49ers. I've heard the Patriots could be interested, but from what I hear, Patriots fans don't want him at all.
The Bears
The
definitely
Bears,
want him.
the Bears definitely want him.
Steelers fans can't. Their
So
cap is way too messed up.
there's a
And Big
whole
Ben, I don't believe he's going to retire.
there's a lot of loose ends that do we have enough picks to trade? Do we have enough defensive players to trade? If we do get him on the team, how are we going to perform with him? Do we have the offensive line he needs? Do we have the weapons he needs? And to be fair, if I'm looking at the Jets, it's a no for all those. I mean, obviously they have the picks. I don't know how many defensive starters they can give up to get him, and they definitely don't have the weapons and tools around him to help him succeed there. I mean, his best bet is going to the Dolphins or the 49ers, I would think. Maybe the Bears. I think the Bears have some decent offensive weapons. I like David Montgomery. If they keep Allen Robinson around, that would help. But first, you got to figure out all those picks and those defensive players you're going to go to get them. So
I
it's
guess
definitely a
I will
lot.
say with the Bears, we have seen them trade their picks. They traded 3 first-round picks for Khalil Mack, however many years ago it was. So, their front office is obviously one that could, if they think it's right, even if it's a high price, they may do it. Because if we look at the Bears team, kind of in a similar vein to the Rams, their defense is good, not as good as the Rams, but it's very good. Khalil Mack's, I think, 29, maybe 30. So you only have a few years left for Khalil Mack. And, maybe they're a quarterback away too. So if they think that it's the right time for them, because the NFL is about winning Super Bowls. I don't see Mitch Trubisky at a Super Bowl ceremony holding the trophy as anything else but a backup quarterback at the ceremony. So quarterbacks, probably the most important position in the game. So you need a good one to win a Super Bowl, and I don't think Mitch Trubisky is that. So maybe they do go for Deshaun Watson, but I doubt it.
Listen, man, you're trashing Mitch Trubisky. You can't name another player that's got a Nickelodeon Most Valuable
Mm,
Player award, can you?
I can't. You are correct there.
That's right. Mitch will, I won't say forever because there'll probably be another game on Nickelodeon at some point. But for right now, he's the only guy to ever win that award. And that is definitely a valuable award in my book.
Okay.
I guess let's talk some hockey, Dan.
Let's do
Uh,
that hockey.
I've been dying to talk about some hockey. We're coming up on about start of the third week of the season. It's been a crazy 2 weeks just to open up. Uh, I would say for the most part, the standings are pretty normal. You got your teams that you expect to see at the top on the top right now. Vegas looks good. Colorado looks good. Toronto looks good. I'm getting tired of the whole aspect of like, oh my God, Montreal, they're incredibly good. It's like I think a lot of us expected them to be good. Maybe not to the level they're performing right now, but they were supposed to be good this year, and they were definitely supposed to be a lot better than they were last year. And a lot of people definitely saw that. considering their bubble play against Pittsburgh and their series against Philadelphia. They performed well in those. So I think a lot of people expected them to perform well to open up the season. And it really helps that the Canucks are not doing good. The Oilers are not doing good. The
The
Flames
Flames are
the Flames started
underperforming.
out pretty well, but they've gone way downhill since then. So they're capitalizing on their opportunities and they're doing great. And their young guys look amazing. Suzuki, he's performing very well. Look at Kotkaniemi, he's doing very well. Their defense is holding up nicely. Their goaltending's doing well. Carey Price and Jake Allen's a great one-two punch. Everything is falling into place for the Montreal Canadiens right now. I believe they sit second in the Northern Division, only behind Toronto,
Yep, two
who
games
in
in hand.
their own right, Toronto are doing insane. You just look at this top four. You look at Marner, you look at Matthews, Nylander, and Tavares. Those four guys alone are just tearing it up in the Northern Division. And Dan, do you want to talk about the Northern Division before I move on to the other divisions first?
I guess you could say the Oilers, of course, they have Draisaitl and McDavid, who are both atop the point leaders right now, and by, a decent little margin, but they're 5 and 6. So, those points need to be turned to results. Yeah, like you said, Calgary, I think they're underperforming. They did play less games than everybody in the division, but not by much.
I will say one
And
thing about Calgary. Signing Jacob Markstrom might be the greatest thing they've done in their organization history. Vancouver, for letting Jacob Markstrom go, is probably the worst move that the Vancouver Canucks have ever made, besides burning down their city after they lost the Stanley Cup in 2011. But signing Jacob Markstrom for the Calgary Flames is going to pay huge dividends, not only this season, but upcoming ones too.
yeah, and I guess lastly about the North Division, just I don't want to rub it in your pain, but the Senators are just, man, a negative 22 goal differential. That's something. They have the least amount of points in the league. It is rough goings, but hey, maybe you can win the lottery and get the first pick.
Uh, I'd like to say there's bright points about it, but there's not. There's just not. Matt Murray, I can't even say he's bad because the defense is just so trash. Defense is, you could put no goalie in there, and I feel like teams would still score the same amount of goals. So they just give up. We're recording this about 2 hours after the final, their last game against Edmonton. They just lost 8-5. 8-5. I mean, 5 goals is cool, but they scored three of those pretty much in what in football we would call garbage time, when the team's already up by 40 points and the defense isn't trying anymore. And it's not even like the offense performing. Kachuk's having an okay season. Stutzel's doing pretty good in his rookie year. I look at Norris, he's doing pretty well. But the rest of the team is just, it's so down the drain right now for them. It's not even funny because the owner Eugene Melnick, he was looking at the season of, I don't think we're going to win the cup this year, but we got to do better than we did last year. We can't do any worse than that, right? And at this rate, they're 1-7-1 right now, and it's just not looking good. And I think they have yet to play Montreal, so that's 10 games they got to play against Montreal, and they've still got a long way to go. I think they've only played the Maple Leafs twice, so that's 8 more games against them. They just got swept by Vancouver. Before that, I think Vancouver had 2 wins before that series started, and now I think they're a 500 team. So it's rough being a Sens fan, but you know what's not rough? Being a Flyers fan. The Flyers are playing some pretty good hockey, not defensively, but we won't talk about that. The Flyers are playing some pretty good hockey. They said 7-2-1 right now. I think Dan, you said earlier that was tied for the most wins right now in the NHL.
Yeah, they have the same record as Toronto, but the Capitals are
Points
ahead in the
wise.
division. Yeah, and they have a game in hand.
So I'll talk about the East Division now. East Division, that's been a fun one to watch so far. I think the Sabres and the Capitals have already played about 4 or 6 times. So they're getting to know each other a little bit. And real quick, Buffalo. Buffalo's looked great so far. Their goaltending, Allmark and Hutton, very good. That's a great duo right there in that. And then Taylor Hall. I need his agent in my life. Well, he signs a 1-year deal with Buffalo to play for a coach he used to play for, and it's paying dividends. He is either going to get a humongous contract for whatever team he wants in the offseason, or he's going to sign another 1-year deal to prove he's even better. He's doing great right now in Buffalo, and that's a really underrated deal that a lot of people weren't talking about, especially because we saw the Krug and the Petrangelo deals in the offseason. Those were the really big ones we looked at. We all looked over Taylor Hall, but that's a great deal. He signed an amazing deal with a good team. Him and Jack Eichel look amazing. Them on the power play, them in overtime on 3-on-3s. Great. Phenomenal things in Buffalo. Very bright future. Dylan Cousins, their young guy who finally he's made his NHL debut. He looks great. They're doing really good. And the rest of the East Division just looks really good. I guess the only team that really doesn't, I would probably say the New York Rangers at this point. Even the Devils have looked somewhat good up to this point. Their first couple of games they played the Devils. They played the Bruins in their first two, and they lost one of them, and then they won the next one. And I can't remember who they played after that, but they've looked pretty decent since then. They did just lose back to back to the Flyers, and I think they just split with the Sabres. So, but they still look pretty good. I think the Rangers are really in shambles. Uh, I talked about their stud number 1 overall pick, Alexis Lafreniere. He's got 1 goal. They've played almost 10 games, and he's only got 1 goal, and I don't think he's got more than 3 points. That's not good. That's not good at all. And and if you checked out our NHL video summarizing the season, I picked Artemi Panarin to win the Hart. Not looking good for him. He's having a decent season. I think he's up to 4 goals, maybe 4, 5 goals, possibly. But just today, Tony DeAngelo, they placed him on waivers. Dan, we talked about this earlier. No one was really sure why they put him on waivers, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're going to pick him up so instantly." Apparently, he's a huge locker room cancer. He punched Grigorev. I hope I'm saying that right. Their goalie in the mitt, right in the face. Apparently, there was a big argument between them. So they put him on waivers. I don't know what's going to be next for him. I imagine some teams have already claimed him, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens with him, see where he ends up. But Dan, why don't you go on the East Division and I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I kind of what you said about the East. I think it's the most fun, the most competitive. We were already saying that these teams don't like each other. They're from markets that don't like each other. And I guess to the point that I'm trying to make with the competitiveness, so the Rangers currently have a -3 goal differential, and they're the last place in the East Division. And the other teams who are bottom of the divisions, there's -9, -15, and -22. So I just kind of think that speaks to the competitiveness of the games, even though the Rangers are underperforming right now. But yeah, the Capitals look great. The Flyers look great. The Bruins also look pretty good. So it's going to be a very interesting tournament once we get to it, because these teams have some great players, high profile players. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a team from the East winning the cup.
Yeah, you mentioned the Bruins, and I was getting ready after their first 3 games. They played 2 against the Devils, and they played 1 against the Islanders. I was getting ready to call them my most disappointing team of the year because they had yet to score a 5-on-5 goal. And then they played the Flyers 2 games,
Yeah.
and they
Oof.
scored, I believe, it was a total of 11 goals in that series alone.
Yep.
And ever since that, they've been scoring like crazy. I think they scored 3, I believe it was last night against Washington. They scored, I believe, 4 or 5 against Pittsburgh the other night. They've been lighting the lamp. They've been doing really good. They found their footing. They got David Pastrnak back in the lineup. That's huge for them. He really helps out their power play. But they're really missing Torrey Krug on the power play. But now that Pastrnak is back, hopefully he can pick up that slack a little bit. But Krug is definitely missing from that team. The Capitals, they've been playing phenomenal. They have yet to lose in regulation. So that's a win. So you haven't dropped any points this season. Well, you have dropped a few points, but you've gotten points in every game, which is good. And that's the goal in hockey. You want to get points. I believe they only have 3 overtime losses.
Yep.
So they're doing good. And listen, the past 5 games they've played without Ovechkin. They played without all those other guys who got put on the COVID list, and they managed to keep winning all of them. And now they've got Ovechkin back. He's back in the lineup. They're just going to get better, and it's going to be hard to see who knocks Capitals off. I know they finally play the Flyers. I believe it starts on Sunday, and they play again on next Tuesday. So the day of the Super Bowl, the Flyers play the Capitals, and then a day after that, or 2 days after that, they play again. So that'll be fun one to watch. We'll see those two giants go up against each other, and I think there might be a goaltending problem in Pittsburgh. Uh, I've talked to Dan about this plenty of times. My fantasy goalie was Tristan Jarry, and he literally lost me my first game. If I wouldn't have played Tristan Jarry, he got like -13 the first 2 games against the Flyers. Like, come on, you can't -13. He lets in 6, or I guess he let in 5 in an open net on opening night. And then the next game they played, he let in 3 on the first 6 shots. And then the Penguins played the Smith for like the next 3 or 4 games. He starts doing pretty well. And then they put Jari back in. He's like, okay, I remembered. I'm actually a decent goalie. And he started playing well. And then the Smith kept playing well. And then Jari played bad. So at some point, I think there could be a goalie controversy in Pittsburgh, which that's not going to help anyone in Pittsburgh. I know Crosby and Malkin have been playing pretty good this year. Someone else is Jankowski. They rolled the dice on him. That was a pretty good move for them so far. So good for Pittsburgh, I guess. But them and the Islanders really need to pick up the slack just a little bit if they want to keep pace with the Flyers, Capitals, and Bruins in this division. I guess one of them will be fine with taking 4th place, but it might be better not being content with taking 4th place and getting maybe 3rd, maybe 2nd. So they're gonna have to pick up the slack a little bit. Both those teams and the Islanders. They lost to the Flyers today. I think that's their 4th loss in a row. I want to say 5th loss in a row, maybe
5th loss in a
5th
row.
loss in a row. I don't know what their problem is. They're a healthy team right now. Matt Barzal, he's playing up to that big contract they gave him, 3 years, $21 million, backloaded. So in 2 years, he'll be making $10 million a year. Good for him. He deserves it. He's a great player.
I can tell you what's wrong. They have the least goals scored in the whole division.
Well,
They have 19 compared to even the Sabres 30 and the Capital and Flyers 35. That'll do it.
that will do it. That definitely will do it. But at the same time, they started the game the other day 3-0 against the Capitals and then lost the game 6-3.
That'll
So
also happen.
you can't do that either. And as much as I hate the Islanders, I can't just sit here and be like, keep losing, guys. Like, no, I want you to win. I didn't buy NHL TV just to watch you guys lose every day. I mean, you got to win a few games, right? I digress. Central Division. How about the Dallas Stars? They missed like the first week of the season because COVID. They show up first game 7-0 win against the Predators.
Yeah, that
It was funny
something.
because they got a power play early in that game and they didn't get it, and the Predators were like, "Yeah, our power play or our penalty kills amazing," and then they got like 4 power play goals that game. The Stars did. And how about Joe Pavelski? He's got maybe 10 or 11 points at this point now, and they've
6 games
played
played.
6
Yeah.
games played. He had like 9 in their first 2, so I guess he slowed down a little bit, but he's looking pretty good early on in the season. Dallas is too. Hudobin, he's playing pretty well. He's going to be their starter without Bishop for most of the season, and they're also doing it without Tyler Seguin as well, so that's good for them. The Chicago Blackhawks have officially probably become the second worst team in the NHL, only behind the Ottawa Senators, obviously.
Probably Detroit.
I would take Detroit, I think.
Maybe.
Well, I look at it this way. Thomas Greiss for Detroit, he's been having a very good year. The stats won't really show it, but he's been having a good year. And if he had a defense to back him up, he would be putting up much better numbers than he currently is. And they've just lacked goal scoring in Detroit. Bobby Ryan, he was putting up a good amount of goals in their first 3 or 4 games, I think. He was leading the league in goals at one point, but the more the games went on, the more he fell behind in that category. But I think Detroit's way better than not way better. They're better than Chicago right now. I feel like they have the better goaltenders, uh, and the fact that Malcolm Subban is still on the Chicago Blackhawks roster is just not a good look. I know they switched the they're playing the backup now. I forget his name, but he's doing pretty decent. And Tampa's good. What else is there to say about Tampa? They're good. Vasilevsky's looking good. You know, the rest of the lineup, they look good. Braden Point looks good. Stamkos looks good. Hedman looks good. I'll just leave it at that. They just look good. Nashville, they look decent. Carolina looks good.
How about them Panthers?
Panthers,
My dark horse to get into playoffs. Currently top of the division, 5-0-1.
they have only played 6 games, and they have yet to play a decent team in any of those games. I think they played 2 against the Red Wings. I think they played 2 against Chicago, and I believe they played 2 against. Ooh, I don't know. I just named 4 of the games they played, so that should be 4 wins right there, don't you think, Dan?
I mean, you play who you're scheduled against.
Sure, but like, what's going to happen when they go up against Tampa? What's going to happen when they go up against Dallas?
We'll just have to wait and see. I mean,
I guess. I mean, you're not wrong. All right, let's look at the West Division. As I said earlier, the Avalanche, great. The Golden Knights, great. The Blues, I wouldn't say they're great, but they're good. Opening night, they beat the Avalanche, and the next game they lost 8-0 or 8-1, I think it was. Golden Knights have COVID now, so that's no good for them. Which is weird because they played the Blues, I believe it was on Tuesday or Wednesday night. They played them, and like an hour before game time, they're like, the coaches are out. They've got COVID. The AHL staff is going to be there. It's like, why are they just canceling the game then? I'm not sure. Oh, how about the Minnesota Wild? They look good. Minnesota Wild look good. They started the season out with a nice record. I think it's changed a little bit since then. But
currently
Kaprizov,
6-4.
oh, Kaprizov, he's
Mm-hmm.
blowing me away. Every single game he plays is just God. And guess what? He's a rookie. He's a
Overtime
rookie.
winners.
He's gonna be running away with the Calder. Give him another month and it's already his, I think. I don't know if anyone's catching him. With the way Lafreniere and Stutzelo started, I don't think anyone's catching him. The Kings, they've looked pretty good. I wouldn't say they've looked amazing. They've looked pretty good though. The Anaheim Ducks, Gibson, he's putting up Vezina numbers, and no one's going to talk about it because the Ducks are just so garbage. He's really having a great season though. I think they had a 1-0 shutout against the Coyotes the other night. Gibson, amazing, just phenomenal stuff from Gibson. Looks great. Don't be surprised if he gets traded around the deadline for a team that needs goalies. Any team could trade for him. Same goes with the goalies on Arizona. Both are looking good. Darcy Kemper and I want to say the other one's Ranta. They both look good, so they could be a trade bait around the trade deadline. I'm not exactly sure when the trade deadline is, but they could be interesting pieces that could be moved to teams that need goalies. And speaking of trades, Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Winnipeg Jets for Patrick Laine. Dan, why don't you give me some thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of weird. I didn't quite think that Winnipeg would move on from Line like that, but especially for a player that's older than him, you know, you always want to try to get younger. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it's a great get by Columbus because Line is a good player.
So here's how I look at it. Both those guys, they were in the same draft, and they were actually picks 2 and 3. So, and from what I hear, way back when, I think it was, I think Columbus, they tried to move up to 2 so they could take Line instead of Dubois.
Mm,
So
wow.
they finally got their guy, I suppose. But I think the Jets got fleeced. I mean, Dubois, he's a great player, and he's gonna fit in nicely with the Jets. But I feel like he could lose a role. He's not going to be put on the first line, and he may not even get put on the second line. So we'll have to see what happens with him. But for Columbus, it's a good look for them. They pick up a good third line center, and they pick up Line as well. And the only problem with it, Line is a free agent after this year. He is restricted, but he's a free agent. So they're gonna have to figure out what they want to do with him. Luc Dubois is signed. I believe he signed a 2-year deal, so he's going to be in Winnipeg for at least the next 2 years. But it's going to be interesting to see how both those guys play. I'm not exactly sure when they're supposed to be making their team debuts because of the border issues, especially for Luc Dubois, the Canadian border and how long he's got to quarantine for. I know I'm pretty sure Line is in Columbus at this point. I'm not sure when he's going to make his team debut. He's got his work visa. I think he had a 48-hour quarantine, which I think it ended today. If not, it ends tomorrow. So we could see Line within the next week, maybe, but probably not another week or so for Luc Dubois. But I wouldn't say it didn't catch me by surprise. Luc Dubois, he played 3 minutes in one game. He got benched by Torts. Uh, so that happened to him. And I know they wanted to get rid of Line. I didn't think they'd do it now. I thought they might have done it. If not in the past all season, maybe close to the deadline this year. But two unhappy guys, they wanted to get out of terrible cities. And guess what? Winnipeg is the American version of Ohio. And, Ohio is the American version of Winnipeg. So you get what you deserve, I guess. I don't know. I think it was a good trade for both teams, though. Luc Dubois should fit in nicely with the Jets. Line should fit in nicely with the Blue Jackets. And it'll make the Blue Jackets a lot more competitive in the Central Division, which is wide open right now. Anything could really go in that division. Dan, anything else in hockey you got? Got any funny stats you want to pull up for us or anything?
I don't think so. Just, it's been very fun to watch so far. I like the kind of format, especially with me because I watch the East the most, but the rivals are playing each other game in and game out. It's an interesting dynamic to see that we usually don't get, as to where like the Flyers will play Pittsburgh usually and then fly out to Arizona to play the Coyotes. But now everyone's playing each other. Whenever the Penguins and Flyers, Penguins and Capitals, Penguins and Bruins play, it's always a good watch. So just, keep watching your team.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is one thing I do miss. I miss the just the playing of other teams. It's weird not seeing like the Flyers won't play the Kings at all this year. You won't see the Blue Jackets. You won't see the Blue Jackets play the Jets. The Jets play the Blue Jackets. I'm sorry. You won't see that at any point, which is unfortunate. Not until next year at least, or maybe we'll see it in the playoffs. Probably no. I doubt it though. So I guess we'll move on from hockey. Uh, Dan, why don't you choose our next topic? What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk a little NBA because right now
NBA.
my Philadelphia 76ers are very hot right now, and
They're
I would
buzzing.
say that as of now, February 1st, Joel Embiid is the league MVP. I know I just said I was a Sixers fan, but I feel like you could
Shun your ears,
objectively,
LeBron fans.
yeah, I feel like you could objectively say that he rested their last game against Pacers, but the game prior he had 37 points. I think he's averaging right around 30 and 12 rebounds on a first place team, which is kind of what you kind of the criteria because players can have great numbers, but you need to be like a 1 through 3 seed to be considered for the MVP conversation. And right now, that's what the Sixers are. But we still have a lot of basketball to play, and the East, they could very well get caught. They're only a few games ahead. Of course, the Brooklyn Nets, that's a crazy thing how they're going to manage. And of course, the Bucks are still good. I don't know why everyone's still they're not as good as they were last season, but the Bucks are still good. And whenever the Celtics play the Sixers, Sixers somehow lose. But I will say Doc Rivers made a huge difference in terms of when the Sixers would play before, you could see Britt Brown getting out coached by Brad Stevens or, whoever it may be. So that's been huge for them. And in terms of the Western Conference, both LA teams look really good right now. The Jazz went on like a crazy 10-game win streak or something. They did lose the other night. The Warriors, Steph Curry's playing really well. Um, but they're currently, I think they're in the A spot. So if the Warriors can make it to the playoffs during a series, if Curry's hot, who knows what can happen. And the Timberwolves, man, they started off like 3-1, and now they're 5-14. They're missing. I don't think Karl Anthony Towns is playing, so that the interior of their team is just shot. But it's been quite an interesting year so far.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think Embiid is the MVP at this point. Uh, I mean, sure, you can make the case for LeBron,
Or
but
Jokic, but
or Jokic, but I think it's the same thing with like Mahomes this year in football. It's like sure, Mahomes did put up MVP numbers, but Rodgers should get it mostly because I don't like back to back MVPs. I say that in my sport, hockey gave Gretzky a Hart Memorial Trophy for like 9 years in a row.
yeah,
But I'm just like not really a fan of back to back MVPs type of thing. Uh, like they gave it to Giannis 2 years in a row, so I'm not saying like LeBron can't win it this year, but he's already got what? How many does LeBron have? Two or three MVPs?
yeah, two or three, not an insane amount.
So I think it's good to see new players get it. And you make the point about the standings. The Sixers 15-6 right now. Nets 13-9. They did lose back to back games to the Cavaliers, which was kind of funny.
They
But
also did lose to the Wizards in overtime
yeah,
tonight.
it happens. Those losses don't really mean a thing in the postseason. So I think the Nets they end up probably wrapping up. Not wrapping up. I think they get the one seed. I think the Sixers probably slip up, especially because when the Sixers don't have Joel Embiid, it's such a nightmare for them out on the court. They played the Pacers without Joel Embiid today, and they were down by 20. Granted, they did come back and win the game. Just a sloppy game. Excuse me, and that's how that is literally what MVP means. When Embiid's not on the court, you can see how bad the Sixers are, and just how much better they are when he is on the court in his presence. It means so much to that team because Ben Simmons alone can't carry that team. Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris cannot carry that team. So they definitely need Embiid. He kind of glues everything together. So it's good when he's out on the court, making his presence known. And I don't know if you saw the clip, but he said that FIFA was more difficult than guarding Anthony Davis.
Mm,
So I thought that was pretty funny. And FIFA is pretty difficult, as me and Dan both know.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, NBA has been pretty fun this year. They have what the NHL doesn't have, and that's they're playing every team. 72 game season. I want to say we're about a fourth of the way there. Uh, maybe a little bit more. But it's been fun so far. So far, so good. Dan said both LA teams have been playing great. The Jazz, they went on their little run. They're doing good. Uh, and Bradley Beal, what do the Wizards do with him? Leading the league in scoring right now, and he's playing for the worst team. Uh, you gotta think he's gonna get traded at some point, right there.
I don't know because I feel like we've been talking about this narrative forever, right? Shouldn't Beal have been out for like 2 or 3 years by now? I can't believe that John Wall got out before him. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he's on a max contract, or at least close to it. So it is going to be a lot of money, but I'm just not sure what will get him out. I don't know what team will trade for him, I think it's got to be a contender, right? That could possibly. I mean, hell, maybe the Nets. You never know. But I've been hearing the Nuggets. It would be very interesting because I think uh, even though I do like Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., I think like a primary scorer because that's not what Jokic is. Jokic is a playmaker for first and foremost. So he would be interesting there. But I feel like if a trade were to occur, Michael Porter Jr. plus picks would, and maybe a few other role players would have to go in the other direction. And it could pan out well because they are in the West. They still have to get past LeBron. They still have to get past Kawhi. They took care of the Jazz last year. The Suns look better. Obviously, we have a Steph Curry led Warriors this year, so it could be a move that they need to make. But I kind of similar to Deshaun Watson. I don't know. I feel like Bradley Beal could get like priced out of the move per se because of the asking.
I originally thought that the only teams that would be not necessarily able or willing to, but the teams that would be like 1 and 2 to trade for him would have been the Sixers and the Nets. I don't think the Nets do it anymore now they have Harden. If they would have missed out on Harden, had the Sixers got him, or had he gone to the Heat or something like that, they would have gone for him. And I think the Sixers would have gone for him had Tobias Harris not, caught fire. He's doing pretty good right now, so I don't think they want to mess with him. And his best season was under Doc Rivers with the Clippers, so I think they want to keep him around for at least this year and see what he can do. And right now, he's proven that he deserves to stick around. So I don't think the Sixers pull the trigger on a Tobias Harris Bradley Beal swap. But now I'm starting to think there's one team that does make the move, and that's the LA Clippers. I think they could move possibly either Lou Williams or Patrick Beverly and, a bunch of picks to get Bradley Beal. They probably throw some other things in the deal too to sweeten it up. I know they gave up some picks to get Paul George from the Thunder, but they obviously do have picks to give up too. And there's probably some other players they could probably throw in there to sweeten it up as well. But I think if the Clippers traded for Bradley Beal and you see Beal, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard on the court at the same time, that's a pretty deadly combination right there, in my opinion. Beal can score. Uh, Paul George, he can also score on his good nights, as we've seen before. And Kawhi Leonard is probably not probably he is one of the best defensive players in the league right now. So that's a good combination right there. Uh, I don't know how well it works out for them big picture wise with three guys on max deals. I mean, we look at it in Brooklyn right now. Three guys on max deals. You got, KD, Kyrie, and Harden all on max deals. So I think if the Clippers made that move, it'd be great for them.
Yeah, I agree. That could be. I think it would be more fun if you were to go to like the Nuggets, just because I think it would mesh well together, considering Paul George and Bradley Beal are a bit more ball dominant than say like Jokic and Jamal Murray. But yeah, if the Clippers can find assets, I know they just got Luke Kennard. Maybe they can throw Luke Kennard the other direction. Then yeah, I mean whatever you can do to beat LeBron because that's the goal. The Lakers are still a very good team. I think they improved over the offseason, adding Gasol, Schroeder, and Harrell. Even though, guys like Dwight Howard and Danny Green left, I think that they're just fine. So the Clippers are in win now mode, 100%. So I could also see them definitely pulling the trigger with a move like that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Got anything else NBA?
Anything else NBA?
Grabbing my head with hockey the past couple of weeks. Behind
Yeah,
on my NBA knowledge.
I think Lillard the other day did like a T Max score like 9 points in like 15 seconds or something like that.
Hey man,
So there's some
Damian
good
Lillard,
highlights out there.
he might be my favorite player in the NBA. I like
Very
him a
fun to
lot.
watch. Very
He's
very
a good
loyal
player.
player too.
I think I had his first signature shoe. I don't know if it was his first, but I definitely had his shoe. So shout out to my man Dame. Uh, I guess if we don't have anything else on NBA, let's talk. We'll talk some UFC real quick. Dan, I had the honor of having you at my house to watch the Poirier McGregor fight. Great night of
Yes.
fights. why don't we talk about the co-main event really quick? Michael Chandler, Dan Hooker. Going into that fight, Dan Hooker, I would say he was a clear favorite. A lot of people expected him to win. Uh, I know personally, a lot of people thought that Chandler did not deserve to be in there. He was going to get washed, and Dan Hooker was going to run away with that fight and prove that he's a top lightweight. It goes the complete opposite way. Michael Chandler puts on an absolute clinic, knocks out Dan Hooker. I believe it was probably halfway through the first round.
Something like that,
So
I think.
I mean, Michael Chandler, very impressive stuff from him. Uh, Dan knows firsthand. I was rooting for Chandler. I've probably been saying, I wouldn't say I've been saying it the most, because there's definitely been a lot of other people out there rooting for him as well. But I've been saying he definitely deserves to be here, and he's got all the tools necessary to be a top player in this UFC lightweight division, which is the most stacked division right now in the UFC. So, and speaking of that division, I mean, Connor and Poirier. Dan, give us some thoughts on that. Why don't you?
Yeah, I was a huge fight. Conor McGregor, he said it himself after he's been out of practice for a long time. And you could very clearly see that the fight, I would say he definitely won the first round. He landed some good shots, classic Conor. He got Poirier took him down pretty early in the first round, but he got out of it, played some good takedown and on the ground defense. But the thing that kind of led to his demise is that he wasn't checking Poirier's leg kicks, and you could see that after the first round, he was kind of gassed. And Poirier is, very determined, very well trained fighter, and he knew that, and he just kept going with the leg kicks at the start of the second round, and then his swings started to hit, and eventually Connor got stuck against the cage, and he went down. So Poirier, hats off to him. It was great performance. He took a few of the punches in the first round and then pounced on him in the second. So I think Connor said himself, and I think Poirier as well. They definitely do want to get that third fight in there. It's 1-1 now. It's interesting to see where these two go. I know Poirier said that he kind of lost his ambition in fighting. It's not his main focus anymore. So I don't know if he'll take another fight before this third fight. He very well could. And I definitely know that Connor's going to take more fights. I think he's ready now. You know, I think his mindset's changed a little bit. Like it doesn't have to be Khabib, who's his next fight. He just, wants to get fighting again. And that's great to see. It's great for the UFC when Connor fights.
Yeah, Dan, you broke down the fight perfectly. I think Connor completely forgot that he was in MMA fight and not a boxing fight. He was way too flat-footed. He wasn't checking those kicks, as you said. Those calf kicks were absolutely killing him. You could see after the fight, his leg was all beat up. Very good kicks by Poirier. And I don't know if you caught on it during the fight, Dan, but occasionally Poirier would point at McGregor like this and laugh at him. But he was catching his timing too. He really knew what he was doing. He knew Conor wanted to connect with that left hand, and granted, he did a lot, but Poirier started picking up on it, and he adapted to it very nicely. He started throwing a lot more combinations, and like you said, Poirier did take him down in the first round, and I saw some similarities in what Habib does on the ground. He had him up against the cage. He tried wrapping his legs together. He didn't wrap his legs around Conor's leg, which is what Habib usually does. And he usually gets the Dagestani handcuff too, where he locks his hands down. But you could see what he was going for, and he nearly had it. Connor did bounce back up though, and as you said, he started picking up the pace in the second round, and he got the knockout win. It was very impressive. And like you said, what's next for both guys? I thoroughly believe. I think there's going to be a third fight between these guys. I think that's both of their next fight. I don't see how Connor. I really thought that Connor was going to win this fight and somehow drag Habib out of retirement for 30-0 for Habib at least. But it's not a possibility anymore. Habib is done for unless he's getting his GSP fight, which I beg to God hope he doesn't. He's done for. He's not coming out of retirement anytime soon. We've seen the last of Habib Nurmagomedov. Uh, at least in the octagon wise, we'll see him as a manager. His brother is fighting, so look out for him. Um, but yeah, I think these guys fight again for the third time. If not, we see maybe Poirier take on Michael Chandler, or Charles Oliveira, if they do eventually vacate the title from Habib, and we possibly see Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 3, which is what a lot of people have been waiting for since I believe it was 2016 those guys fought. So
Long time.
we could see that a possible trilogy, two possible trilogies from McGregor. And Poirier's got a handful of options, I would say. I would say realistically he should go for Charles Oliveira or Justin Gaethje for title shot if and when they strip Habib, because he is retired now. So I say strip, but he is retired, so he's just kind of giving up the belt. But I would think that would be what's next for Poirier. And if Chandler doesn't end up getting Poirier, then he could go for either Charles Oliveira, or maybe he could go for Conor. Who knows? If Conor doesn't end up getting Nate, I don't know what's going on with Nate Diaz. Uh, he's talks all the talk, which is granted that's the Nate Diaz special. He talks to everyone. He says he'd roll Habib. I don't know about that. So we'll see what he does. I would like to see him and Conor go for a third time at 155. That's the fight to make, in my opinion, and it'd be great. But enough about the past. Let's talk about the future, Dan. We got a lot of title fights coming up. And when I say a lot of title fights, we got a lot of title fights coming up. So without getting too deep into them, we will get deeper into them in the future. It's just some quick predictions here, Dan. The next title fight we've got Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns for the welterweight title. You got in that one?
I'm going to take Usman. I think Gilbert Burns is definitely a good fighter, well adept fighter, but Usman's a champ of the division for a reason. He's fantastic in every facet of the game, really. And I don't know if I can see an outcome. Well, I guess I can see some possible outcomes, but to me, it's definitely Usman's fight to lose.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there, Dan. I think Burns has got to put on the most perfect fight he's ever fought in his life to win that fight, I believe. Don't get me wrong, he's a great fighter. He put on a clinic against Tyron Woodley. So he's got what it takes, but I went Usman to win just so we can get him in Covington for a second time, because the build up to that fight would just be phenomenal, and I'd be there for every single second of it. The next fight we'll look at, I think it's the March 6th card, which features 3 title fights. I will start with the first one, the women's featherweight title shot. Amanda Nunes
Nunes.
versus okay, versus Megan Anderson. Dan's right, it's Nunes. I I don't know. I'll pray for you, Megan Anderson. I don't really see how you win this fight though. Aussie, I guess. I don't really know. There's not much of a chance for you. Maybe if Nunes breaks her foot on the walkout.
She slips on some sweat in the octagon, and
Yeah.
then Megan just falls on top of her.
Uh, Good luck. Good luck. Don't put any money on Megan Anderson though. Just don't. It's wasted money. We'll move to the next one. Piotr Jan versus Aljamain Sterling UFC bantamweight title.
I think this is gonna be a good one. I know Jan's been fighting well, but I'm gonna go Aljo just because I don't know. He's one of my, I guess, more liked fighters for me, at least personally in the UFC. And I think he's got a lot of tools that he can use against Jan. So for no particular reason besides the fact that I like him, I'm gonna go Aljo.
I'm gonna take Piotr Jan. Or I don't know. It's a tough one to call though. Uh, I need to look more into it. First reaction, I'll go Piotr Jan though. I like Piotr Jan. I think if the fight goes to the ground, it's Piotr Jan all day. Stand up, I think Aljamain does have the advantage there. I think Jose Aldo did a very good job against Piotr Jan, the stand up, when they fought back in July. But Piotr Jan does have good stand up. Don't get me wrong there. But I think on the ground, he's definitely got the advantage. But on the feet, Aljamain Sterling's got the advantage. So first reaction, I'm going to go Piotr Jan. But when I look into it more and look at the tapes and go over the footage, I'll have more of a better outlook on this fight. And the main event for that card, I'm really looking forward to this fight. UFC light heavyweight champion, the middleweight champion moves up Israel Adesanya is going to fight Jan Blachowicz. Dan, what do you got?
It is really hard for me to bet against Adesanya. So yeah, I mean it should be a good fight, no doubt about that. But I'm definitely gonna go Adesanya. I don't. He's such a great fighter. I don't know how. Like I remember it was like he was gonna fight Jake Paul in a boxing match. I'm like, he doesn't stoop to that level. He's a champion UFC fighter. He's not gonna do that. I mean, Jake Paul is getting this fight against Ben Askren, but
While we're at it, why don't you predict that fight too?
I really don't know because obviously Askren is, he's much more of a fighter than Nate Robinson is because he was a fighter, albeit a UFC fighter.
Ben Askren has taken a punch before. That's the thing. That's the
Yeah,
difference between him and Nate
yeah.
Robinson.
So, that could do it, but I don't know. I got a feeling that I think it would be I don't know. It's going to be quite funny to me either way who wins because if Jake Paul wins, then all like the fighting purists will get mad. But if Jake Paul loses, then everyone will be happy because Jake Paul lost. Well, for the most part. So it should be interesting. Definitely more interesting. I don't know how many of you watched the fight, but Nate Robinson's approach was suspect at best. I didn't really quite get it, but I mean, Jake Paul, he's trained for a while. He's smart. He's obviously not well, I guess he is a
He's training
professional
with Jorge
fighter now.
Masvidal for this fight, so
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit salt in the wound, very Jake Paul-esque to do that. But I was kind of looking forward. I wanted who was it, Dylan Danis?
Dylan Dennis, yep.
He every single Instagram post about Jake Paul, even on Jake Paul's post, he's commenting like, "You dodged me." I'm like, I don't. Why didn't?
Here's the thing about Dylan Dennis. Dan, you'd think with all the smack he talks, he's a world champion in every single division. The reality is he's had 2 fights in Bellator against guys who have had, I think their records were 2-5 and 2-6.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to sit here and say he's the greatest of all time. I know he's got some skill with his jiu-jitsu, but that doesn't
it's a
transition into
boxing match.
boxing exactly. So for him to talk all this talk, cool, but uh, Ben Askren is the one walking the walk. And here's my beef with Ben Askren. There's a clip of him in the Damian Maia fight where he's just like throwing punches like that. He threw a spinning back fist at one point, which Dan, you remember the Boston Scott spin move he had in the game against the Giants? It
Yes,
looked
I
like
do.
that. It looked like that. There was no effort into it. His boxing is terrible. But here's the thing. Ben Askren, I hope you're watching this. I'm going to look right into the camera and say this. If you can successfully beat Jake Paul in a boxing fight, and I imagine a lot of the MMA community, will forget about your 5-second knockout loss to Jorge Masvidal. If you do not, you're done. You're done for. I
Double
don't know
meme.
what to say.
Yeah,
But if you could knock out Jake Paul, if you could finish him and end all this nonsense, we will forget about your 5-second knockout loss to Jorge Masvidal. It will be erased from our memories. It'll go in one ear and right out the other. We'll never mention it ever again. The clips, they'll be gone. When you post something on Twitter, you won't have to scroll down and see the video in the comment section. You won't. It'll be gone. All of it over. Okay, but back to the UFC. Uh, did you make a prediction on the Adesanya? You said Adesanya,
that
right?
is something. Yep.
I would have to agree. I can't doubt Adesanya anymore. I know it's different divisions, but I thought the only one who could challenge on the middleweight division was Robert Whitaker, and he torched Whitaker. So I want Adesanya to win this fight, and then I'm hoping he ends up fighting John Jones, just so I can finally see that. But I don't think Adesanya will have a problem with his speed. I know with the extra weight, I don't think it'll be a problem for him. Obviously his power, he'll only be stronger, and he can definitely take a punch. He went up against Yoel Romero and Paulo Costa, 2 of the most powerful guys in the middleweight division. So I don't think he's afraid to take a shot from Blachowicz. So I think Adesanya wins the fight. But again, I'm gonna once I sit down, watch the tape, and review the footage, I'm gonna have more input on this one, and possibly a prediction change. We'll see what happens. We'll move on. This one's at the end of March. We see Alexander Volkanovski defend his featherweight title against Brian TCD Ortega. Dan, what do you got here?
This is an interesting one because Ortega's last fight was against Korean Zombie, right?
Yep.
And he fought pretty well after a long absence, like 2 or 3 years not fighting. And Volkanovski wasn't his last fight was against Holloway, right?
Last two
And
fights were against Holloway. Yep.
he won in quite controversial fashion, I believe. Holloway and many others thought that he won the fight. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think Volkanovski's still a great fighter. I mean, you don't become champion by accident. At least that's what I think. So, and Brian Ortega's Modelo commercial haunts my nightmares.
It's a great commercial.
But there's still a lot of time for the fight. So I'm gonna have to mull it over. But I guess first reaction, I'm just gonna go with Volkanovski.
You said it perfectly. Once I go over, like I said, the last two fights, once I go over everything and really figure out what I'm looking at, I'll have a better opinion. But at first glance, I'm thinking Volkanovski. Uh, this could really go either way. It's a coin flip. That's why I want to sit down and look at the footage and look at what I'm really thinking about. So I'll go Volkanovski for now, but that could 1000% change the Ortega very easily. So we'll have to wait and see, and be on the lookout for when we talk about these fights in the future. In the main event of that one, we'll see Stipe Miocic defend his heavyweight title in his second fight against Francis Ngannou. Dan, go ahead.
I'm gonna have to go Stipe, man. I can't doubt Stipe. He's a volunteer firefighter as well. Very, very good on him. And I know Francis packs a lot of punch too, but I feel like Stipe is perhaps a bit more well-rounded, and he's the champion of the heavyweight division, and that didn't happen by accident. I don't think his reign is going to end come this March.
There's an interesting stat out there right now. I think, don't quote me on this, it could be possibly wrong. Uh, since his matchup with Derek Lewis, so after the Derek Lewis fight, Francis Ngannou has only spent a total of a little less than 3 minutes inside the UFC octagon. He's fought 5 times since then. That's a lot of early knockouts and early finishes. And again, I could be absolutely wrong on that number, but I think that's just that. But there's no way Stipe loses this fight. There's no way. And when I say this, believe it. Put money on Stipe to win this fight. He is the underdog to win this fight.
Wow, I didn't know
Last I
that.
checked, he was, I believe, 137. He's a plus 137. So if you put $100, you're gonna win $137. I would definitely, if you're a betting man, I would put money on Stipe to win this fight. Look at their last fight; he absolutely dogged Francis. So he was on top of him for 5 rounds. He didn't let up at all, and he ate all of his shots. So I don't need to sit down. I don't need to watch the tape. I don't need to review the footage. Stipe wins this fight unless something catastrophically goes wrong for him, and Francis lands the absolutely perfect punch on the first shot. That's the only way I could see Francis winning this fight. But put some money on Stipe. If you want to if you want to get some easy money, put some money on Stipe. So I'll just leave it at that. Stipe is a hell of a fighter, and he's still the underdog. Even just 2 years ago, he absolutely destroyed this guy. So, or I guess it's been 3 years at this point, but not that long ago, he absolutely dogged this guy, and it's not that different of a scenario if I look at it now. So I guess that's the UFC. Do you have anything else for us to discuss, Dan?
I don't really think so. I guess, in terms of soccer, league play is of course still going on. But there's still a little bit of time left in the season. Champions League is in 2 weeks, so we could talk a little bit more soccer in our next podcast.
Yeah, we'll be back soon doing this again. So it's been nice to be able to record a podcast. I know Dan finally got to go on campus, so he's been kind of busy with
Mhm.
his life. And I'm finally back in school as well, so I've been a little bit busy with my life. But once we get into the roll of things, and once we can get Anthony back on here sometime soon too, that'd be great. Uh, but yeah, we'll be back soon talking about, as Dan just said, Champions League comes back very soon. I believe the 16th, Dan, February 16th.
16th. Yep.
Group stage
Barcelona
starts.
PSG.
If you want, we have around the 16 predictions video. You can go check that out. And you can be sure we'll be talking about all the future UFC cards that we just mentioned. As I said, the Burns Usman fight card coming up very soon on February 13th. I believe the Adesanya Blachowicz card comes on March 6th, and the Ngannou Stipe 2 comes on March 27th, I believe. So you can be sure that we'll be back talking about all those as the NHL season rolls on, as the NBA season rolls on, and as the rest of the soccer leagues they continue, the Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga. We'll be talking about those as well. And MLB, that's not that far away. Pitchers and catchers going to report within, I believe, the next couple of weeks. Phillies re-signed JT Realmuto. Let's go.
And Gregorius.
And Gregorius. Can't wait. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap us up for tonight. Dan, any last words?
Just, you know, stay safe. Enjoy the sports that we're getting right now because, this time last year we didn't really have it. So, or I guess by March. So I guess we still had it. But, just enjoy what we got. Hockey's very exciting right now, at
Oh
least
yeah.
for me.
Oh yeah.
It's my number one thing right now. So just, keep up. Be ready, of course, Super Bowl 55 happening in a week. So just, stay ready, sports fans. We got a lot.
Yep. And the number one way to stay in contact with us and all of your favorite sports is to follow us on all of our social media platforms. You're watching the video on this YouTube channel right now. So why don't you just do yourself a favor and hit that little subscribe button? It's right down there somewhere. Either like turn your phone, a certain way, or go out at full screen mode to click subscribe. Do what you got to do. So subscribe to the channel. We're gonna attempt to post a bit more. I know our upload schedule has been very weird, but we're gonna try to somewhat normalize it. Follow us on Instagram at sportsking.dom. That's been very inactive as recently as well. But I myself, and along with the Price Brothers, will try to make it a little bit more active. So follow us on there. And you can follow us on Twitter at sports__kingdom. That has also been very inactive as well. But it's a new year. We're going to try to be a bit more active. That's going to start now. And yeah, follow us on there. And of course, we're by the fans for the fans, baby. That's what we're all about over here. I've been your host, Dominic. This has been Dan, one half of the Price Brothers. And on behalf of Anthony, we look forward to seeing you all in episode 12 of the Sports King.Pod and future videos and whatnot. Instagram posts, tweets. Maybe we'll get a Twitch. I don't know. OnlyFans, who knows? We'll do whatever it takes, man. So we're gonna catch you all in the next one. Thank you for watching. As I said, I've been your host, Dom. This has been Dan. We're gonna sign off for tonight. Stay safe, everyone, and adios.
Peace.